followed by Wanda Callie.
Good evening, JohnFontiPC12072010.MOD. I'm going to repeat a few things that I said about 3 weeks ago when I was last here at the council meeting, and I think it's actually more appropriate for tonight. And hopefully I won't be raining on the parade tonight. But to start off, without good reporting by our local newspapers, our residents remain in the dark about important matters. And that's too bad because there's a lot going on that residents really would be interested in. First thing I'd like to comment on is the recent election, which returns all the incumbents tonight, and that's over the unprecedented 10 challengers. This is the first time in years, maybe ever, that more people voted for challengers than the incumbents. And that speaks volumes, that voters aren't happy with you. Claudia Pena was the biggest vote getter by far, but even though Claudia was an incumbent, she ran as a challenger. For the past 8 years, she's regularly challenged the status quo, the 4-to-1 supermajority. On controversial matters, she's the one on the typical 4-to-1 vote. If the votes for Claudia were added to the challenger votes, the results are just startling. 70% of the votes cast did not go to Mr. Gillette or Mr. Fox. That represents a 70% dissatisfaction. So even though council may be back to the same 4-to-1 supermajority until the next election, I just hope you realize that you have no mandate from the voting public. As a matter of fact, the current council supermajority is basically repudiated on November 2nd. We would expect that elected officials would keep that in mind when deciding controversial issues, but I'm afraid it's business as usual here in council chambers again. And here's a prime example. Next week, you will be considering approval of the ridiculous and monstrous TV screen sign in front of the Auto Mall on the 101 freeway. It's going to be 35 feet tall, which is the equivalent to a 3-story building. The proposed sign is against long-standing municipal sign policy and would forever change the looks of Thousand Oaks. This sign should never be considered in the first place. But even if one were to overlook that very significant point, one would hope that the council would attempt to get public buy-in of the sign by putting up a realistic mock sign for a month or two and solicit public feedback. But we all know that you won't do that because the public would repudiate the sign like they repudiated you on November 2nd. So in closing, I hope that the public comes in droves to next week's council meeting and that they tell you to drop the sign, drop the special treatment to the Auto Mall. Redevelopment dollars are to fix blight, not to create blight. And in this case, you're going to be creating sign blight on a scenic highway. Thank you.
Thank you. And our final speaker, Wanda Callie.